Evolution Mining acknowledges the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the lands on which we operate and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We recognise their strengths and ongoing connection to the land, waters and communities as the custodians of their culture. Evolution Mining has a strong relationship with the Wiradjuri Condobolin Corporation since we took on the Cowell Gold operation in 2015. Across all levels of our collective businesses, we partner together to deliver shared value for Indigenous people of the Wiradjuri community. We walk the path together on our collective journey of building capacity and reconciliation. Elders play a significant role in Aboriginal communities as they hold important knowledge and wisdom that has been passed down through the generations. Today, we hear the stories of 3 local Wiradjuri elders and Wiradjuri Condobolin Corporation directors Ali Coe, Uncle Dick and Dawn.
Born back in 1955. It was a hell of a long time before the referendum in 1967, so times were a bit tough, a bit difficult, especially as a race of people when you are acknowledged as a part of, you know, the fauna and flora in central New South Wales. So that was I think that was a learning process in itself as we got older. I mean, back in those days, life was what it was. We had absolutely no idea that, you know, there was another or a better way of living. You know, life was just hit and condo, so times were tough. Growing up, say out on the Murie, the reserve where we all lived, the houses themselves were just a few sheets of tin, a bit of lino and some timber just all put together. Dirt floors, no electricity and stuff like that. I think another real challenge for us as a family, when I was 10 years old and our mother passed away, 4 of us were then transferred into an uncle and auntie that also lived out there. So you can imagine in the tin shacks that we grew up in, another 4 kids coming in and join forces and to make, you know, the living conditions even tougher with 8 kids and a couple of parents living under those conditions. But that's the life that we knew. It was the only life that we knew. Living on a reserve with what they used to call mission managers at that particular time, there were a lot of rules and regulations that we, you know, had to follow in terms of how long you were allowed to be in town, which part of the town you were allowed to be in, and you know, straight home, get straight back out after school. The workers, and knowing that the workers were only allowed in town up until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning to see if any of the employers wanted to take them out and give them work, and then, you know, back out. It was now today, if we look back on that, it just doesn't seem right. It was never right, and we often question that. But there's 2 ways that you can go. You can get bitter about that, or you can embrace that as a part of the history in the way that it sort of toughened us up and you know, led us all toward becoming you know, agents for change. The happiest times were the times when everybody were sharing, and there was a sharing and caring aspect of our lives out there, and everybody was only, you know, too willing to share what they had. So if our old people went across and went bush and got all of the bush tucker, then all of that would be shared around to all the families, and that was one aspect of, you know, one real positive aspect of growing up on the Murie, that everyone sort of cared for each other and shared just about everything. No one ever went without any item of food. So whatever one family had, it was shared among all of them.
Growing up in Condobolin, I lived out on the Murie, and it was a settlement type thing. We lived in tin shacks. My father used to go out to the tip to get the square kerosene drums. He only had a push bike, and he used to bring them back on the push bike, and he'd straighten them out and build a house. And we had, we'd line it with, if it was cold, we'd line it with sugar bags, or we'd put newspaper around it if we had newspaper to make it a bit warmer. We had no running water at the time. The creek at Murie Creek was our survival, and we drank water from there. We cooked with that water. We also bathed in that water, but we had to cart it from the creek up to our house, our village where we was living, and we had to put Epsom salts in it to settle the mud before we could drink the water. We had no food. We had to go out and get rabbits to eat, or fish, or we used to go across from the Murie, go across to the Alec and catch yabbies, and sometimes that's all we'd have. And we walked from school to school from the Murie, across the plains. We had no shoes. Few people that used to walk together and, you know, protect each other, I think. But the buses, the cars and the buses used to go past and just wave to us. You know, so say walk to school, more or less. But they never ever pulled up and gave us a ride. And then I remember my mother standing outside on the footpath trying to get me into the public school. And it was, at the time, it was the high school, and they wouldn't even take her into the office. They did it out in the footpath. So I think a few people were like that. Now remember, if we didn't turn up at school, the welfare would come and looking for us. The old people would always know that the welfare was coming, and Mum would say to us, "Run, you kids, run up into the bush and hide." And if we didn't have time to run up into the bush, we had to get under the bed, and you could get under the bed and you could see the snake tracks from the snakes getting around there the night before. Well, they started moving everyone into town, give people houses in town, and then they bulldozed that house straight down so nobody else could move into it. So no one else was allowed to move into it, so once you moved out. And they didn't educate us at that time about living in town. We used to pull the boards off the houses and burn them because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to live in a nice house in town.
We'd get into trouble a lot, and we'd go away playing somewhere, and we had to be home off the streets before dark. The policemen would say, "Home you go, come back here, I'm going to take you down to the police station, lock you up." So we'd bolt on home, and sometimes we'd hear the old man whistling. We knew his whistle, so we'd run home real quick, because if we didn't, we'd get a hiding, which we didn't like. Left school when I was 14, but it was hard in them days. Go to school cold, no jumpers, no long trousers, barefooted. And you get a hot day in the summertime, we'd run from shade to shade because the ground was burning our feet. And we'd run very fast to the next shade, all the way to get home. And get to the shade so you'd cool off and you'd go again. Very, very, very hard. Well, we wasn't allowed in pubs. Well, I walked into a pub there one day with my mates, 17 mates of us, 17 of us. And that's when I used to have a beer, only about 19 then. And the pub wouldn't serve, they served everybody else. What's the 17 beers for? Oh, me, you. And him, he's not having one. Me. They barred us, see? So my mate said, well, if you don't serve him, you don't serve us. So we walked out, all of us, all 17 of us walked out of the pub and left all the beers on the bar. Today, discrimination, there's a bit of that still here, but it shouldn't happen really, just because it's the colour of your skin, right? And the non-Indigenous people didn't like that. They'd say, we're sort of, to me, outcast. Outcast, where you can't do this, you can't have that, right? Never had any rights, really.
The connection to our land, especially to the small reserve that we grew up on, is a very, very strong connection for all of us. Even today, many, many years after we were removed from there is a very, very strong connection, and especially from our elders that are still with us. And I think the process for us all that came from there is one of teaching all of our young people today what it was like and how tough it was. And, you know, living under those conditions was very, very tough at that particular time. So I think the sadness with a lot of the elders at the moment is a real desire to actually go back there, to return back to that particular place. And I think that's a fair indication of how spiritually strong they are attached to that little place out there.